to our very first virtual episode of BTN. We're back. Our show did not get canceled. It's been a long time since we've had a new episode, but this is our first episode of the very different but exciting 2020-2021 school year. And I'm so excited to have my first virtual panel here today. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing how we can, as new teachers, help students cope with the reality of COVID-19 being in the news and other stressful events that are in the news right now. I don't know about you guys, but right now I get overwhelmed as an adult when I watch too much news. So I just wanted us to talk a little bit today about what might be going through the kids' minds and what we can do to help them navigate these unusual days we find ourselves in. So I wanted to introduce my panel real quick, and I'm going to start with Ms. Coppola.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Coppola. I'm the Director of Counseling Services here for Harnett County Schools, and I work in our Student Services Department under the Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services.
Thank you. We're so excited you could join us today. Ms. Moss?
Hey, I'm Jessica Moss, and I am the Recruitment and Retention Coordinator, or one of the Recruitment and Retention Coordinators. My schools are Everhills Elementary, Middle, and High, Lafayette, and Highland Elementary.
Okay. Ms. Summerall?
Hi, I'm Meredith Summerall. I'm an 8th grade English Language Arts teacher at Western Harnett Middle School.
Yeah. And Ms. Banker?
Hey there, I'm Lauren Banker. I am a high school counselor at Western Harnett High School.
Thanks so much for being here, Ms. Brummer.
Hello, I'm Brianne Brummer, and I am an elementary school counselor, and I work at Anger Elementary School.
Awesome. Ms. Jarvis.
Hi, I'm Ms. Jarvis. I'm the 8th grade counselor at Harnett Central Middle School.
And Ms. Brown.
Hello, everyone. I am Lucretia Brown, and I am a teacher of special education at Overhills Middle School.
Fantastic. So today's panel, we're so glad you're here. We want to get right into our discussion. No pressure. First of all, I want to start out by asking the guidance counselors, maybe some of the teachers too, to what degree are kids really worried about this pandemic? Is it something that they think about? Are they internalizing it? Tell me, based on your experience, are kids coming to you with concerns about the pandemic? Anybody want to take a stab at this?
I'll start. So last year when this hit in March, we had obviously already established relationships with our students. And so I did get emails and some students reaching out about COVID, but more specifically about family members who were affected. And I'll say towards the end of the school year last year, even into this year, it doesn't seem to be that they are concerned with the pandemic, but more concerned about not seeing their friends and being back in their normal routine. So I'd say from a middle school perspective or from our age group, that it's less concerning about the pandemic and more concerning about getting back to reality for them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's a great, that's good to know. What can teachers do to help with that, in your opinion?
Oh, sure. So I don't know if I'm allowed to brag on my school, but
yes, by all means, please.
So something that our teachers are doing across the board is just making sure that they're establishing relationships from the get-go. And so we have an Excel period where every teacher is doing some sort of team building, get to know you activities. I was talking to a student today after school via Google Meet with their parent, and she said she must have written about herself 4 different times today. And I thought, good, that's great, because that means the teachers are getting to know you and you're getting to know the teachers. So I would say first and foremost, just establishing that relationship so that they can then dive in to truly meet the needs of our students and not just surfacey.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody else want to add to that before we move on?
I can piggyback. I hear a lot of our teachers, and I think it's from some professional development that they've done over the summer, where they really focused on relationships over rigor. And that's something that they have constantly been saying, and something that we're able to back up as counselors and really focus on getting to know your kids, especially our new 9th graders who have never been in here before. And this is something brand new to them coming to high school. But like Ms. Jarvis said, I feel like it's relationships that need to be focused on, because I think that's what the kids are most focused on. Right now, they're worried about their family members.
Okay. All right, I'm going to kind of like go out of order based on the questions that I gave you, because I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying. But is remote learning in general stressful for kids?
Yeah.
I know that it's stressful for my teachers, right? But to what degree is it stressful for kids, and how?
I mean, I'll go on that. But I mean, we have to understand that all these kids come from different home environments. So they're not all sitting there in this perfect little cubicle with a perfect little quiet place. I mean, there's many different environmental factors going on in their life. So we have to acknowledge that, and getting to know your students and forming a relationship with them is one way of getting to know your students and maybe what their home life is like. So you have to think of that. I think that's really important with the students. And, you know, maybe think about the kids that have, you know, the 504s and the IEPs and the learning disabilities. Really be on top of that and get to know your students and connect with the teachers, because those kids are going to need a little extra, you know, TLC and stuff like that. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Ms. Coppola and then Ms. Stumble.
Okay, so I kind of want to take a perspective of not only an educator, but a parent. So I had 2 children, elementary age children, in virtual learning last year, and it was extremely difficult for my first grader, navigating different things. And then I'm trying to work as a parent virtually as well. And so I think, like Brianne said, or Ms. Brummer said, is that not everybody has that support at home. And so not only is it stressful for the students, because using technology this much is kind of unfamiliar to them, and then also the parents who may not be technologically literate, and they may not know how to navigate, or they may not even be present. And so I think there's layers of stress here. There's layers of stress with the child, and then in the family environment as well.
Ms. Summerall and then Ms. Cross.
And going off of that, just the fact that kids don't necessarily know how to access the resources that they knew how to access at school. So like libraries or their counselors, they may need more support just in terms of like being able to access those things now from their home instead of from in the school building. So I think that's something to consider.
I think that's a great point, Ms. Summerall. Thank you so much, Jessica.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Lauren said, because I do think sometimes the stress that is on parents can carry over to our kids if we're not careful. And like Lauren's saying, I mean, I have a teaching background. I use this technology all the time, and still it's a lot. Even just finding childcare, you know, who's going to be watching them and getting everything organized. And so I think it's important for us, as much as we can, as we're building relationships with parents, is just to make them aware that sometimes their stress that they're experiencing, if they can try to watch what they say about how stressed they are, or, you know, just body language in front of kids, because they pick up on that. And so I think if we can inform parents of that and help them be aware of that can be helpful as well.
Ms. Brown.
Yes, I would like to talk about the 1% here, which are the parents and students, I guess, that love virtual learning. I actually ran into a student today in one of my classes, and the parent asked to speak to me after the class when all the rest of the students were dismissed. And she just commended the platform and how organized we are thus far, realizing that there's a long way to go, but just kind of acknowledging and saying, hey, this actually works better for my child because I'm able to monitor his behavior. He has the behavior problems at school, but because I'm here beside him, we're not running into those problems. And so she actually enjoys and thinks that he's more focused on the virtual platform, which I rarely hear. But I was able to say, well, hey, we know that this is at least working for someone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing a success point. That's encouraging.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think what Ms. Brown just did, pointing out the positives, is something we can all do. And I think that this has been a trying and difficult time. there are positive things that have come out of it. And so thank you, Ms. Brown, for
Yes.
And absolutely, with the positives too, I think everybody has to give each other grace. You know,
Yes.
not only give our children grace, give our teachers grace, give our parents grace. Sometimes kids have really hard days, and acclimating to this new normal or whatever it may be, some days they may need some more leniency or some time to not necessarily be completely into virtual learning. And so I think that that's really important for all of us involved in this.
Yeah, especially those of us that are like very reluctant to let go of high expectations of students. You know, which is a great thing. We want to keep the bar high, but we want to get there with grace. I think. I don't think we should lower our learning bar, but definitely be more flexible with how we get to the goal.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had in the one of the questions that I sent you guys were, what are some warning signs? And of course, this is COVID or no COVID. What are some warning signs of anxiety in our kids? I just wanted you to, some of our BTs might not know what the warning signs are of anxiety in children. Also, I'm a little curious as how they vary across age groups.
So, Chair, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Forgot to raise my hand.
Grace, I'm extending grace to you.
So for middle school, some of the things that we see, and I'll start it off with face-to-face. Restlessness is huge. If they express any sort of worry, hypersensitivity to situations that are typically not something that would cause a red flag. Trouble concentrating is huge. A big one is lack of eye contact. And so I know those are all things that you easily can pick up if you're face to face with a student. However, being that we're virtual, some ways that we've already seen is most times students will turn their camera off so you can't see them. So that could be a sign. If they are emailing you endlessly, maybe it's the same question asked in a different way, or maybe they email you as well as parent, as well as dad, as well as aunt. So if there are multiple ways of trying to contact, that could be some sort of anxiety. But what's hard is that on the other hand, and it could be the extreme opposite where they're avoiding and it's complete avoidance. And so as I was looking at this question, I kind of thought, this is really hard to pinpoint if you don't know the student already, because it could be one of the two very extreme cases. And so really, we're going to go back to building relationships, probably every single question. But once you know your student, it is a lot easier to tell if they are anxious or have worry or anxiety over class, or maybe it's a social situation outside of class. But those would just be a few.
Yes, Brummer.
For elementary school, I think even face-to-face or possibly what parents are dealing with or have dealt with or going to deal with is a lot of kids have physical ailments, younger kids, when they have anxiety. So they have a bellyache or they have a headache. They'll ask for help often with things that they actually know how to do, but they'll be asking for help. They'll need like constant reassurance, like, do you love me? Did I do good? Is this the best picture that was ever drawn? Like things like that. That can be part of anxiety too that I've noticed in children. And then a lot of the other things that Christy had mentioned too. So we see those things also in the elementary school kids.
Anybody else? Anxiety signs. Miss Banker and then Miss Brown.
Sorry. I would say for high school, it's very much like middle school, but maybe a little more matured a little bit more. I have noticed with some of my kids, OCD-like behaviors and very worried about particular work and super critical of themselves, always wanting the good feedback and the positive feedback or any feedback, period, just to make sure, am I doing this right? And like Ms. Brummer said, I mean, it's like that in elementary school too, but I see a lot more of that in the high school area.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment that Ms. Jarvis made about building relationships with parents. That's one thing that I really commend my EC program specialist on. Is she encouraged us that within the first 10 days of school to contact every parent for the students on our caseload. And with that, I've taken that time to kind of affirm them and say, hey, we are going to make sure that the accommodations are being met, even on the virtual platform. These are the service times to serve your child during those times. And then also asking that question of, what can I do to best serve your child? And I think that really opens up the door for them to tell us a little bit more about we are having to teach that we really, like you said, don't necessarily know. Especially with me, my caseload are sixth graders, and so they're all coming from different elementary schools, and I've never really met them or their parents before. So I think that kind of calms. I've seen a lot of parents where they're up here, but then they kind of simmer down just a bit whenever they're kind of reassured in that area, especially for a student with special needs.
Y'all all have done an amazing job of answering that question and looking at it at the different age levels and the different development. Something that's really important is to make sure that teachers, sometimes we can be reluctant to reach out to parents when we notice things that are concerning, but it's so important to do that because they may not notice these things and they may not be typical of their child. And so if you don't know a child coming to your classroom, that's okay to ask the parent, are these behaviors that you see often? Is this something you've noticed as well? I just wanted to touch base with you because it is a little bit concerning and I want to make sure Johnny is doing okay and I'm supporting him in every way.
I think that's awesome. I like that's what they need to know. So thank you so much. But going back real quick, let's say that I see the signs. Okay, as a teacher, is it appropriate for me to try to strike up a conversation with the kid and ask them what's going on? Should I try to talk about something different and look for clues, or should I refer them to you guys, guidance counselors? Can you give us some insight into that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I always tell teachers they are my first line of eyes on students because they are with them way more than we are with them. And so any feedback that teachers can give counselors, the better, because no, that is not your job to have to call Susie's mom and say they display these 3 characteristics that mean that they are ADHD. Absolutely not ever. And so whatever, I tell teachers all the time, whatever you recognize, even if it's the smallest little detail, even if you think it means nothing, if it's a red flag, if it raises concern, shoot me an email, come talk to me, and then we'll go from there with what needs to be done. And if it's something that's appropriate for the teacher and the counselor to call in together on, that's wonderful. Then the more the merrier. Even classroom observations will then come in handy there if the counselor can step in and kind of observe themselves. Virtually, counselors are available to step into virtual meetings. So just reach out to your counselor. And really, I guess word of advice for beginning teachers, if you don't know your counselor, go get to know them. Please just get to know them. We want to get to know you. So just go get to know them. They are a huge resource for you. So invite them into your room. We're more than willing to be there.
Yes, that's great. Sometimes we don't use the people that we have in the building that are there.
And you can do that as well, like virtually. I did that in the springtime. I would pop in at least once a week to every single class, like right at the end of maybe a lesson, just so that I wasn't doing face-to-face, I'm not face-to-face, virtual counseling. I was posting stuff weekly, but I wanted to see the kids' faces and I wanted to see how they were interacting together. And that was really helpful for me to jump in and let the teacher know. So maybe, try to do, talk to your counselor and see if they can do that, if they can jump in, just to connect as well. So I did that. It was really, really beneficial for me.
That's great.
Ms. Banker, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's a reoccurring theme, if you're in, it could be that most of your class is struggling with virtual learning or anxiety, or you see something in more than just 1 or 2 students. As a guidance counselor, we have a great ability to provide those resources to the teacher, or even us ourselves go into the classroom and provide a guidance lesson even. So we have a good opportunity to pair with the teacher and collaborate together to develop lessons and resources if it's, 1 or 2 students to 20 students in your classroom.
Okay, I'm going to give y'all for our last question one that I did not give you in the so this is I'm just kind of curious. If a teacher is experiencing a lot of anxiety, which I did not throw out there, how important is it for them to not let that show with the kids? Can y'all talk about that a little bit? I know a lot of teachers, and it could be anxiety about anything, not COVID, not current events. Maybe it's the online instruction or whatever. I guess this is going to vary amongst age groups again, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Ms. Capola?
Okay, so children feed off the adults around them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, they do.
Now, are we saying that adults shouldn't have anxiety? No, absolutely not. This is an anxiety-provoking time. Yeah. Absolutely. But I think that the adults in the buildings also need to be aware of what's going on with them and don't be afraid to reach out to our school counselors. Are not only counselors to our kids, but they're counselors to our staff and our families, and they're there to connect them to resources. And there are plenty of resources in Harnett County, and even through an EAP program with human resources that can assist the adults and our staff in getting the help that they need, because you all know that if we're not at our best, then we can't serve our students the best. Exactly. So going back to what you said is that it is important to try to be as professional and together as you can, but we also understand that there are times where a staff member may not be, but we want to get them the help that they need, just like we would with any other student.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add to that? Yep, Ms. Summerall.
I feel like a lot of times teacher anxiety can turn into like a negativity fest, just like focusing on the things that are bad and like letting that kind of color all of the positive things that are taking place and happening. And so I think just in terms of trying to see everything as a problem solving opportunity instead of letting like that negativity take hold is super important for teachers to do at this time, because like y'all said, kids do feed off of that negativity. So if we can work towards finding those positives, I think it's beneficial not only in the current time, but also in the future as we move towards maybe returning to the classroom as well.
Yes, that's good. Ms. Moss.
And I just wanted to add to that. I think if we really try to focus on student engagement with the learning, like Ms. Capola said, of course, people are going to have anxiety, but if we can really keep our minds on the learning and fun, engaging activities, and when our kids want to be at the Google Meet and they want to learn about whatever it is you're teaching and you're making it exciting, I think it's easier for our minds not to go to those things and to really be focused on the learning. And that's what we're here for. So
absolutely.
There.
All right. This has been fantastic. I think there's been some real good tips. Would anybody like to give a final thought before we sign off? Maybe one of the questions that I didn't get around to asking that was on your mind. Anybody have a last minute tip for our beginning teachers before we sign off? Yes, Ms. Banker.
I would say just going off of what Ms. Moss said and keeping it engaging. One of the questions we didn't get to is how can teachers keep the focus, and just be creative and strategic about connecting your material to real life situations, because it's very evident. So don't try to hide that COVID is a thing, because it is. And being able to connect it with whatever lesson you're teaching, science, history, how these things impact another, just being able to connect the real world to what's happening in your classroom too. That can help keep them engaged.
Yeah. Ms. Brown, and then Ms. Burma.
I am a BT, but one thing that I think has been very helpful for me this year and last year is working with my team. Being able to connect with my team. We are very, very close knit, and so we're on each other's Google Classroom, so we can see different ideas. We're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to ideas. We're not plagiarizing anything. We're asking permission if we want to borrow an idea or say, hey, can you help me develop this a little further? specifically for my students. And so really working with our team, with us, the EC department, has been very, very helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think there was someone else. Ms. Capola?
Brian can go first, and then I'll say something.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to say, I think that communication and connecting with the students is definitely right, especially now in these times, is really important. And I think like a good way for new teachers to do that, especially with the virtual platform, is to do check-ins with the kids. I mean, you can do something, I do something with the kids, and I'm trying to get my teachers to do it as well, to do even on a Google form, like a check-in about emotions, about even how's everything going at home? Is there enough food, you know? And then ask them, how's school going? Is the schoolwork too hard? Because maybe they'll open up, you know, to you if you actually put that question out there. So I think doing something like that is really important, and it's simple as like a Google form. And I think that would just be really helpful for the teachers to do a check-in, let them know that you are thinking about them and you care about their feelings and you want them to be safe. I think if they know that and they really truly believe that, they will open up to you more.
And
Absolutely.
then follow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that we just have to remember we're all in this together. Whether you are a veteran teacher, you're a beginning teacher, you're a counselor, you're a custodian, no matter what your position is in this school district, we're on this together and we're here for these children. And so if there are things that you're concerned about, or a student hasn't shown up to your Google Meet in 2 or 3 days, we need to reach out, and we have resources in every building that can assist you in doing that as a beginning teacher. If you don't know, it's okay to ask. And your counselors are there, and they are more than willing to help. That is what we do, is we want to problem solve and figure out what is impeding children's learning. And our social workers, our nurses, but don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. We all want what's best for our kids. And again, you know, we're all in this together as a district, as a county.
Yes, we are. Ms. Summerall?
Yeah, going off of what Ms. Brummer said, with check-ins, I've also found it helpful to give kids sentence starters to kind of name the emotions that they're feeling and help them to reflect on what's going on. Because even in 8th grade, like a lot of times kids don't really understand what they're feeling or don't process through that. So in those check-ins, I like to incorporate sentence starters, and I found that to be really helpful.
Awesome. I just want to thank you guys for a fantastic discussion. Thank you for being on BTN. Y'all can all wave goodbye to our BTN.
Bye.
Have a great year.